Okay, welcome to Manifest Destiny. It's time to go from sea to shining sea. All right, the Western pioneers, Americans moved west for land, adventure, and/or trade. Okay, many people believe that the movement west was manifest destiny, the idea that the nation was meant to spread all the way to the Pacific and was ordained by God. Okay, the first settlers west of the Appalachians were squatters because they settled on lands they didn't own. Imagine that. The Preemption Act in 1841 gave them the opportunity to buy their own land. So they began a push to settle Oregon and California. It happened partly because immigrants thought the Great Plains had poor farming land. What did they know? Settlers were interested in Oregon and California, although Native Americans and other nations had already claimed parts of the region. So the United States and Great Britain both wanted to own Oregon at this time as well. Britain dominated Oregon until about 1840, when many Easterners settled there as a result of the encouragement of American missionaries. Most came from the farmland rather than missionary work. Now, in Mexico-controlled California, and the local government wanted to attract more settlers. So, because few Mexicans wanted to live there, foreign settlers were welcomed. By the 1840s, several east-west passages, such as the Oregon Trail, had been carved out, which you can play the original Oregon Trail online. These trails were very important to the settlement of the West. As an overland traffic increased, Native Americans on the Great Plains were concerned and angry over the large number of immigrants across their hunting grounds. The Plains Indians had relied on the buffalo, and they feared that settlers would cause the buffalo herds to die off or to migrate elsewhere. So, the federal government and 8 Native American groups negotiated the Treaty of Fort Laramie, in which the United States promised that defined territories would belong to the Native Americans forever. That was not a truthful treaty. All right. So Texas was not always under American control. It used to be part of Mexico. Texas was under Mexican control after Mexico achieved independence from Spain in 1821. The Tejanos, the Spanish-speaking people of the era, had established settlements in the southern part of the region. Since Tejanos refused to move to the northern part of the region where Native American groups lived, Mexico invited Americans and others to settle in that area. Most American immigrants to Texas came at the encouragement of impresarios or agents. So Mexico gave impresarios large areas of Texas land. In return, the impresarios promised to get a certain number of settlers for the land that they had. Stephen Austin was the first and most successful of these impresarios. At first, the Americans agreed to Mexican citizenship as required for settlement. But the Americans did not adopt the Mexican customs, nor did they think of Mexico as their country. So, in 1826, impresario Hayden Edwards and his brother declared that the American settlements in Texas were the independent nation of Fredonia. Whoops. Stephen Austin and some troops, however, helped Mexico stop Edwards' revolt. The Mexican government feared an American plot to take over Texas. So, in 1830, Mexico closed its borders to immigration by Americans. The government also banned the import of enslaved labor and discouraged trade with the United States at this time. These new laws angered many of the settlers who had come to Texas. All right, so Texas fights for independence. American settlers in Texas held a convention in 1832 and asked Mexico to reopen Texas to American immigrants and to decrease the taxes on imports. The convention, held in 1833, was more aggressive. At that time, Texas was part of the Mexican state of Coahuila. The convention members asked Mexico to separate Texas from Coahuila and create a new Mexican state. The convention sent Austin to Mexico City to negotiate with the government. Negotiations failed, and Austin wrote back to San Antonio suggesting that Texas should organize its own state government. Stephen Austin then persuaded Mexican President Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna to agree to lift the immigration ban and other demands. Meanwhile, Mexican officials had intercepted Stephen Austin's letter. In January 1834, Austin was arrested by Mexican officials and jailed for treason. In April 1834, Santa Anna denounced the Mexican Constitution and made himself dictator of Mexico. When Austin was granted amnesty from prison in 1835, he urged Texans to organize an army because he foresaw war with Mexico. The Texan Army's first victory against Mexico was at the military post of Gonzales. When Santa Anna and his forces came to San Antonio in February of 1836, about 150 Texas rebels were at the Alamo. The small force, commanded by William B. Travis and joined by 32 settlers, held off Santa Anna's army for 13 days. During this time, the new Texas government declared independence from Mexico. On March 6, 1836, Santa Anna's army defeated the Texans at the Alamo. The dead included famed frontiersmen Davy Crockett and Jim Bowie. 2 weeks after the Alamo fell, the Mexican army forced the Texas troops to surrender at Goliad, a town southeast of San Antonio. About 300 of the Texas troops were executed. At the Battle of San Jacinto, Commander-in-Chief of the Texas Forces, Sam Houston, and his Texas troops launched a surprise attack against the Mexican army. The Texan forces quickly beat the Mexican army, and they captured Santa Anna, who was forced to sign a treaty recognizing the independence of the Republic of Texas. September of 1836, Sam Houston was elected President of the Republic of Texas. The citizens of Texas also voted for annexation and to become part of the United States. Many northern members of Congress were against admitting Texas as a slave state. So, Texas and Oregon, they entered the Union. President John Tyler wanted to bring Texas into the Union. Texas, however, was certain to be a slave state. So, in early 1844, Congress voted against annexation of Texas. Many Northerners thought that annexation was a pro-slavery plot. James K. Polk was the Democratic candidate in the 1844 election. He promised to annex Texas and the Oregon Territory and to buy California from Mexico. He ends up winning the election. President Polk said that the United States had a right to Oregon. So, those who supported this stand on Oregon used the slogan 54-40 or fight. In June 1846, Great Britain and the United States agreed that the United States would acquire most of Oregon south of the 49-degree north latitude. At the urging of the outgoing President Tyler, Congress passed a resolution that annexed Texas, and they were then able to enter the Union. So, Mexico, angry at the annexation of Texas, broke off diplomatic relations with the U.S. government. Mexico and the U.S. governments disputed the location of Texas's southwestern border. So, in November 1845, Polk sent John Slidell to Mexico City to purchase California. Mexico's president refused to meet with Slidell. After Mexico refused to discuss the U.S. purchase of California, Polk ordered troops led by General Zachary Taylor to cross the Nueces River. Mexicans saw this as an invasion of their country, and a Mexican force attacked Taylor's men. Polk declared war with Mexico. There we are, at war again. All right, so even before Polk signed the declaration of war, Taylor's troops defeated Mexican forces in 2 fights. Taylor and his troops continued south and defeated the Mexican army on 2 more occasions. In Northern California, settlers led by U.S. General John C. Fremont had little trouble overcoming the Mexican representatives there, and on June 14, 1846, the settlers declared California independent from Mexico. They called the region the Bear Flag Republic. A few weeks later, however, the U.S. naval forces took possession of California for the United States. Despite many defeats, Mexico refused to surrender, so Polk replaced Taylor with General Winfield Scott and sent him and his troops to capture Mexico City. The city was eventually captured in September of that year. So, on February 2, 1848, the leaders signed the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. In this treaty, Mexico gave the United States the lands that includes what are now the states of California, Utah, Nevada, as well as most of New Mexico, Arizona, and parts of Colorado and Wyoming. Mexico agreed to the Rio Grande as the southern border of Texas at this time as well. The U.S. did agree to pay Mexico $15 million and take over $3 million in debt that the Mexican government owed American citizens. With Oregon and the former Mexican territories now a part of the U.S., the dream of Manifest Destiny had been realized and the country stretched from ocean to ocean. And that concludes our video. Sorry, it took a little longer than I thought. And have a quick little quiz over that. Look forward to the next one on the Great Awakening and that kind of stuff. All right, thank you. Bye.